What do you make of those late game penalties from Gallagher? Because he's had a few so far this season, but it's not exactly a trademark of his. He doesn't, prior to this year, doesn't have a history of being a guy that puts his team in trouble with untimely penalties. I mean, other guys, I mean, a lot more than him. So what's new? Is it just circumstantial, you reckon?
Uh, no, I think he's put himself in some bad situations, and I think he hasn't kept the game situation in mind. I looked at all his penalties last night after the game, and there are a few that jump out. There was a game against Columbus where he took one with less than a minute left. The game was tied. Canadians killed that penalty, killed what carried over into overtime, which was, I think, a minute 5 seconds of overtime where they had to kill a 4-on-3, and then they wound up winning the game in overtime. He took the second hooking penalty that gave the Boston that very long 5-on-3 last weekend. And then obviously he took the one against Calgary, which, listen, I would agree that shouldn't have been called. And that the guy in the neutral zone definitely shouldn't be calling it, but Gallagher's stick was there. I mean, he put them in a position where they could make that call. Bad call or not, you're giving them an opportunity to make that call. And then last night, so I asked Suzuki about it after the game because he had a long conversation with one of the referees. And so basically the problem was that they told him that they're going to review it. And he's like, well, wait a minute. You can't review a penalty. You can only review a double minor for high sticking. And they had initially called hooking because if you look at the play, the shaft of Gallagher's stick hits the guy in the mouth and then he hooks his hands. So there was a whole series of penalties that
could have been 6 minutes.
Called.
It could have been 6 minutes.
It could have been 6 minutes because he did hook him. So the initial call by the ref was hooking, but then the linesman came in and said that needs to be a double minor for high sticking. You got him in the mouth, and I think the guy lost some teeth. And so essentially what Suzuki was explaining was that we thought it was hooking. The linesman came in, and the linesmen are allowed to call a double minor for high sticking. And once that happened, they were allowed to review it, and the review upheld the penalty. Brendan Gallagher didn't argue it much, was just sitting in the penalty box sheepishly, and then had to watch as the Golden Knights scored 2 goals to win the game with him in the box. So this is, you're right, this was not all that common, but I mean, we have seen it in the past. I remember a game, I think a game against the Flyers in the bubble. Am I remembering that correctly? The bubble playoffs that's one where he didn't get a call and his mouth was all bloody, but
exactly.
It is,
yeah.
He's
Matt Niskanen.
He's had some carelessness with his Matt Niskanen, exactly. And he's had some issues with carelessness with his stick. And that happens, but he's got 18 penalty minutes. He's got 9 minor penalties in 17 games. It's a lot. And so, again, as long as, and I think I wrote about this before the season started, like, what is it so bad to have Brendan Gallagher on line with Jake Evans, the quote unquote fourth line? He probably wouldn't like it. It would be tough to see a guy making $6.5 million on the quote unquote fourth line, but I don't know. At this point, if there's a message to send to your players, it's game clock situation. The Canadiens would have been better off had Gallagher let that guy go and take your chances that Primo makes the save. But even if he doesn't, you got over 2 minutes left. You can get back in the game. I mean, it's worse. It would be better than what happened ultimately, where they give up 2 goals and basically have no chance of getting back in the game. So this would be a right time to send that message that, even the veteran guys, when they're taking penalties like that, one that clearly bothered St. Louis, listen, that's as close as St. Louis is going to come to criticizing a player publicly. This would be a good time to send that message and maybe put him down in the lineup and put up a guy like Ullinen after he put up 2 goals,
Yes, or to continue in the vein of Martin St. Louis saying that he wants to balance his lineup. I think that what we've seen, for example, from a guy like Raphael Harvey-Pinard, when he's been playing with Evans and Ulonen, that line has been a lot more dynamic and offensive than when he's not on that line. But if you have a fourth line made of Gallagher, Ulonen, and Evans, you have a chance to have a fourth line that actually spends quality time in
Yeah.
the other end, that knocks at the door. I mean, right now, Jake Evans is having quality chances after quality chances, not necessarily him, but his line. And it's been that way for quite a
Mm-hmm.
while now. So maybe this line could use a little bit of the offensive acumen that Brendan Gallagher can still provide, and try to create even more of an offensive threat by empowering your fourth line and seeing, let's say, that for if Harvey Pinard is ready to come back in short order, well, you can put him somewhere else on the top nine. That could be a solution, because the Canadians won't have like an Uber sniper readily available to jumpstart their top six. They don't have that guy, so they have to work with what they've got. They have to work with the fact that Kirby Dach's is gone for the rest of the year. So with the elements that they have, either they choose to go top heavy, load the top six, and good luck with the rest, or you say, well, we'll come at you in waves, and shift after shift and line after line, we're going to be somewhat of a threat and somewhat of a menace offensively. So,
which is what Marty himself said he likes. That's what he wants. And so he doesn't have that right now. He does to some extent, and obviously penalties make it difficult to roll your lines. But that's when the Canadians are playing well. That's how Marty likes it. That's how Marty gets them to play well. Is coming at teams in waves, having balanced scoring, and so I think there's opportunities here, but it's there's a spectrum of being too tinkery and being not tinkery enough, and I think Marty wants to err on the not tinkering enough, not tinkering or too he wants to err against tinkering too much.
Yeah,
he probably didn't like that as a player. I can't remember if Tortorella did that much in Tampa, but I feel like he did a fair amount. But yeah, I think this is we're at a moment right now where it's not screaming like let's change everything, and I'm not suggesting he do that, but it is the way the Canadians are playing does suggest that there's a need to just spark something somewhere, and I think giving Monahan to some other people is a way to accomplish that, because he has proven, over the last 2 seasons, whenever he's been healthy, that he makes other players better, and we see it all the time on the ice, how well he facilitates. And I'd like, I asked Tanner Pearson last week about, what makes Monahan easy to read off of, and he laughed. And he said, I asked, what's it like to read off Monahan? And he laughed. He just said, it's so easy. Like, he just makes everything easy. And he just has this knack for knowing what the next play is and where that next play is going to happen. And he's always on it. And if you watch him closely, like even on television, but I know I do it at the games, sometimes I'll watch Sean Monahan for a shift and just follow him around. And that's what he does. He's on his way to where the puck's about to be all the time. And so I think giving him to Slav and maybe Caulfield, if you want to keep that duo together, would not be a bad idea.
So we brought up Gallagher's penalties. As a team, the Canadians are the most penalized teams in terms of the number of times that they were shorthanded, the number of minors that they have. Also, they lead the league in both categories. So, and it's not just Gallagher. Goulie's right up there, 8 minor penalties. Jack-Eye leads the league at 11. So, but it's been an issue for a lot of people. And after the game last night, I tweeted a few minutes before Martin St. Louis said the same thing, so it made me look smart. I wrote that the Canadians had what they deserved, basically, because even though the score was 6-5, just the overall, way that the game was played in terms of scoring chances, which that was bunkers how much the Golden Knights dominated. And the Canadians shot themselves in the foot with their lack of discipline. And I know that some people said, "Oh, well, what did you expect? They're the Stanley Cup champions. We're not nearly as good a team as they are." Fine, in terms of structure, depth, level of talent, I understand all that, but discipline is something that can be fixed if you stop being behind the play, and if you don't chase the game, if you don't chase the puck in your opponents, you can limit the number of penalties. So that's all those PKs are bound to put them in trouble. There's just no two ways around it. No matter how effective your PK is, and it hasn't been necessarily stellar, but it's all right, I guess. But I mean, it cannot. It's a known fact in the NHL that at some point, even the best PKs, if you provide too many opportunities to the other team, they'll find a way to beat it.